Hey there, readers, writers, and friends. Story Serpent here, and today we are talking about The 10th Mistake of Hank Hooperman by Gennifer Choldenko. And if that name sounds familiar to you, and it should, she is also the author of the Al Capone Does My Shirts, My Homework, You Insert Here series, and it is absolutely fantastic. She is a fantastic middle grade author. It was published earlier this year in 2024, March, I believe, by Alfred A. Knopf, which is a division of Random House Children's, eventually Penguin Random House. But before we get into all that, today's random words are like, share, subscribe, dribble. When I saw the cover for this book, which, I didn't quite see it marked up in library stuff, obviously, I picked up a library copy. I thought it was going to be a little more silly than it ended up being. It surprised me with how serious it is. But what does the book have to say about itself? Hank Hooperman hates making mistakes, but right now every decision feels wrong. His mom left him in charge of his 3-year-old sister and hasn't come home. They are out of food and money, and Hank knows he needs to make a move. So he and Boo take a bus to find the stranger listed as an emergency contact on Hank's field trip form. Will ringing Lou Ann Adler's doorbell be a smart decision or his worst mistake yet? Hank is a good kid who tries really hard, but what happens when things go south and you can't figure it all out? When you love your mother very much, but she has problems you can't solve? What happens when you make a mistake so huge it disappoints everyone you love? Can you get a second chance after your 8th, 9th, or 10th mistake? Hank would really, really like to know. So, obviously, the blurb promises us that this is going to be a more serious story. Hank is obviously coping with his mom making some really terrible decisions as a human being. We find out fairly quickly that she is an alcoholic, that she drinks a lot. And his choices over the course of this book are both very intelligent and perfectly age appropriate. Now, you will see that I did not make a single one of my delightful little book dart marks the whole read through, because this book I read this book in less than a day. This book is so readable that even kids, I think, who struggle to read, especially around that 5th or 6th grade level, they are going to get hooked into this. And the book just pulls you through so well. The pacing and the formatting are perfectly on point. You are very unlikely to find a kid who just puts this book down because it gets too hard in terms of the reading, or it just gets boring because it gets slow. And we are really invested in Hank and his little sister Boo and what's going to happen to them. I think this is also the sort of book that's going to be eminently relatable to any kid who has ever had contact with the foster system. If you are an adult that has had contact with the foster system, you know how difficult it can be, how painful it can be. And and this is an odd thing to say because the world building is so rich. You usually don't see that in contemporary stories. They kind of assume that you know the contemporary world in which you live. Let's just get on with the people and the story. But the descriptions, when they are given, ground you so well. You never are lost as to where you are and what's happening. And with maybe the exception of the school setting, but even then, since most of the readers are going to be school-age kids, you tell them they're in a school going to different classes, and they're going to put that together themselves, probably based on whatever school they happen to be attending at the time. So a great place to not waste words when you don't have to. And this book definitely does not. There is not a single wasted word in this book. The writing is so tight. I think I caught exactly one typo, and it was a missing set of quotation marks. That's it. And I was both heartbroken and delighted. I was really afraid we were going to have a tragic ending on this one, but I can tell you that it ends with a great deal of hope and healing for both Hank and Boo and for the adults they come in contact with. Guess what? Story Serpent seal of approval. No dumb adults. Even the adults that are deeply flawed. Even the adults that are super smart and are functioning super well and are adulting in their own lives, they are flawed. And those flaws come to play in Hank's story, but they are not stupid. They are behaving in keeping with the flaws that they have. But nobody in this book is dumb. And that was such a treat for me to see, because you know the story Serpent. She hates a stupid adult. So, in the final analysis, this one gets a pitch perfect. It reads fast, it never drags, the characters are deeply engaging, the morals of the story end up being incredibly hopeful and positive overall, and I think that if you've got a kid who's struggling to read, 10th Mistake of Hank Hooperman is the way to go. So, if there's a story you would like to see the Serpent take on, tell us about it in the comments. Until next time, read on, write on, stay sharp.